This is a show about facing fear, unlocking courage, and taking action.
Courage isn't necessarily a daunting thing.
It's going to give you more purpose. It's going to give you more drive.
It feels like making a courageous decision is going to get you closer to who you aspire to be.
It's knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage.
We generally in the workforce are wishing away our work days. We're just trying to get to Friday so that we can enjoy 2/7 of our lives. When you're living in cancer centers with someone you love and surrounded by the thought of mortality, it becomes very clear that that's not okay.
One of two employees feel a sense of dread at least once per week. This is how we're going to start this podcast. I mean, it's kind of like this is where you'd insert the like the little sound effect. but that is where we're starting, and we're gonna follow it up real quick with how I learned that was from reading an early copy of Today Was Fun, a book about work seriously from our guest, Bree Groff. And Bree, let's call it what it is. I remember when we met. Now, what are we going on?
Like 10 years.
It was like a decade ago. And you see you sometimes you get a chance to see other people do their thing. And I was like instantly like energized by the way you go about designing your presentations. I think that's the right blend of word choices to come together, right? But I also think that Bree that I saw is very different than this Bree who's here with us in the square. Would you confirm or deny this reality?
Yeah, confirm.
I'll tell you, I really enjoyed the book. The book's called
Thanks.
Today Was Fun, folks. I also felt that it was like a rite of passage for you. You can sort of feel this you working through your stuff and like this like a liberating sort of shredding of what needs to be or the shedding of what needed to be shedded. How would you describe the writing process of this book for you?
Yeah. So you're totally right. You know, people say you write the book you most need to read, and that was very much true. Yeah, so the book it marries two different parts of my life. So there's the consulting part where I'm like a professional, and that's a little bit more who I was 10 years ago, doing organizational change, transformation work, big companies, big leaders, all that employee engagement. But so that sounds very dismissive, all that stuff. But that was a huge part of my learnings, right? Like what goes on inside of companies, what makes people love their days, what makes that not true or ever more true. But yeah, it also marries another part of my life. There's a lot of memoir dabbled in, which was losing my mother to cancer a few years ago, caring for my father with Alzheimer's at the same time. That was an incredibly formative experience for me. I mean, I suppose like it would anybody. As an only child, I have one parent with a terminal cancer diagnosis, another with Alzheimer's. And it brought to light for me what an emergency it was that we generally in the workforce are wishing away our work days. We're just trying to get to Friday so that we can enjoy 2/7 of our lives. And when you're living in cancer centers with someone you love and surrounded by the thought of mortality, it becomes very clear that that's not okay. So that's where the book came from my soul as much as my professional experience. And you're right, it also was a bit of an unshedding and awakening for me as well. In consulting, a lot of my work in consulting, it wasn't so much like, here's my advice, I'll tell you what to do. It was more like empowerment, enablement consulting. So for my whole career, I'm in the service of like, leader, what's your vision? And what do you want for the future of the company? And how can we make that true for you? All the while I had building up in me what I thought was best, like what I've seen as happy, joyful organizations with happy, joyful people. And I wanted to finally say that this is what I think. This is what I think it should be.
Totally. Yeah. So along my journey, and this is not new to the listener, so bear with me, listener. Always a good reminder. One of the very first people the universe decided that I would interview for Return on Courage was an astronaut at Virgin Galactic named Loretta Hidalgo. And the cut to the chase was she says that it takes you 40 years to figure out who you are and the next 40 to be that person.
Yeah.
And I'm 39 years old at the time, and I'm like, writing this book,
Right
and I'm
on
like,
time.
what is going on, universe? What are you doing to me? Right? But I feel like a lot of us are living parallel lives where you want to do well, you want to be in service of others, you're trying to you know, help leaders with their blinders and bring perspective or be a translation service and remind them of how everybody else is feeling and doing it in a delicate enough way where you don't piss them off. And here we are, we're like, wait a minute, what is my point of view on the exercise? And so what was cool for me reading your book was and there's no big leaguing. It's just oh, you are so exactly where you should be right now. That was my other big takeaway. It was you've got your thesis on this topic, right? It wasn't just the one of two employees are just but really also, hey, if we're going to do this for a third of our lives, it should be fun. It's that simple. That was the other takeaway. And you can go deeper and how much deeper you want to go. I was laughing to myself with you're preparing for this. I'm like, because the book is pretty much written by three folks. It's not just written by Bree Groff. To me, it was written by an alien, right?
There is Bob the alien is indeed a character in the book. Yep.
Right, so Bob the alien is sort of hello, people. This is weird. Why? Right? So you're Bob the alien showed up, and I also felt that Milton wrote the book, right?
Yes.
You have these three great personas. It's from your perspective. It's from an out of this world character that if they came to visit, would think things were wonky, and that Google Calendar is in control of it all. I'll let you take it from there. And then if you can also, I'd love the Milton character is excellent just because I felt like it was a continued story that would come back of someone that would be very proud of the choices they made, but was sort of nearing the end of their careers. I mean, I might be getting that, but that was my take. Can you explain Milton as well?
Sure thing. Yeah. So to start with Bob, our friend Bob the alien, yeah, my goal in this book was to move away from the business case for employee engagement. That's all over the place. You can't pick up a book about, culture without running into it. But I felt like we're not making the existential case for why grinding through the week is bad for us as a human species. So along comes Bob the alien, my character, or my little helper in this way, to just help us zoom out a little bit. The thought experiment is an alien comes to work or comes to Earth and work. What would they make of how we've designed our lives? And so, yeah, there's a little bit in there where he's tasked with figuring out who the boss of work is. And his answer is oh, I got this, easy one. Google Calendar is the boss of work. People go wherever Google Calendar tells them to go. They don't pee, they don't eat. When Google Calendar says they don't have time, they don't stop, And he wouldn't be wrong that, or substitute Micro Teams Calendar, whatever. So it was my literary device for helping us to see our experience a little bit more clearly. The second character you mentioned, Milton. So this is Milton Glaser, the legendary designer, famous, perhaps most so for the I Heart NY logo and campaign. But he did so much more. He's had single man shows at MoMA and Centre Pompidou, received a National Medal of Honor, all those things.
Yeah, just to be clear, the I Heart NY, I love New York. So I love New York, when you think of that, you think of the T-shirt, that's Milton. Milton's baby.
Yes, that's okay. Milton's baby. So I wanted to use him as an example, not only because I had access to some stories. So my good friend, probably my most frequent collaborator, Sue Walsh, she was his sort of right-hand woman, art director for a decade. And she would always, before I even wrote the book, would tell me all these stories about Milton. And I was like, I love this man. He's incredible. He died back in 2020. But in all of these stories, I was I always had this profound feeling that he got something right about his life. And so I wanted to showcase a case study, and he's like dappled throughout the book, that showcases passion and creativity and brilliant work and success, and holds that within the same vessel of loving work, having fun with people you work with, not taking work so seriously, not being busy. Sue says we didn't experience time like people experience it today. So I wanted to show that our enjoyment of work does not come at the cost of success. And in fact, the most successful, one of the greatest designers to ever live, he lived this gorgeous life alongside doing great work. And so I wanted to make that case for what that looks like.
I'd love for you to tell the cake bakery story.
Sure.
And then I want to put a little, my sort of, I'll give you my takeaway from it, and you let me know if you're like yay or nay.
Sure. Yeah.
You fire away. Give a cake bakery story. Yeah.
Okay. So Sue tells this story. They were approached by a pharmaceutical company to design a signage system for their big corporate campus. So keep in mind, Milton did all sorts of work. He did like posters, brand design. He also designed supermarkets and wayfinding systems. So all sorts of things. They came to him and said, look, we have this huge corporate campus. We have buses that take people around the campus, and people need to walk building to building. Like, what's the signage system so people know how to get one place to another? Pretty straightforward, very practical. So, they partner with a wayfinding agency. They go about making some initial plans. And one Monday, Milton comes into the office, and Sue said, you never know what happens in Milton's brain on the weekend. He walks in and he says, we are working on the wrong project for them. And Sue's like, okay, what's the right project for them? He said, these people don't need a signage system. They need a bakery so that they can take home, these scientists need to take home at the end of the day freshly baked bread. And he had sketched it too. He had sketched this bakery in the shape of a cake. Like it looked, because they had all of these like star architect building, so he's like, this one's going to be a cake. And Sue's like, oh God, what do I tell the client? Like, oh, I'm so sorry. We can't get your buses from A to B, but we can offer you baguettes. How would that go? So her brain is going in the place that most readers' brains would go. Like, this is not practical. What are we doing? This is not meeting the objective. I tell this story, and they did not end up making the cake bakery, but that's also not the point of the story. The point is...
Or surprising.
Yeah, because, the pharma executives are like, we need this investment. It's been earmarked by this budget over here. This needs to be for transportation, blah, blah. But what was so beautiful, I thought about that story, is when I really thought about it. If I am a scientist working, I want fresh bread to go home with every night. Would I get lost daily to go home with fresh bread every night? Yes, I would. There was something so visceral and human about it. And what Milton, his perspective, he was coming at, how do I improve the quality of these people's lives, not in a practical way? And I don't think he would have objected to the notion of a wayfinding system, but he was thinking, what is something more human, emotional, visceral? Like, how do I get at the heart of how you have a good day at work? And he's like, oh, it's bread. That's freshly baked bread. So the story sits within the chapter on brilliant work, and I use it to illustrate that sometimes the most brilliant ideas are absurd. And what was beautiful is he didn't have any qualms with sharing this idea. He didn't hide it in his back pocket because he was scared of being no, he knew his ideas were good and interesting, and some would be executed and some wouldn't. But coming from that place of absurd creativity is something that's, one, so valuable, and two, so easily squashed in our sort of corporate working norms today.
If I was having dinner and I could pick 4 people to have dinner with that are alive, I'd want Milton at my dinner, right? And what could be a better mode of transportation than moving me with fresh baked bread? Or, by the way, walking into a cake bakery that looks like a cake, which is like I loved that part. And you can't not visualize what a pharmaceutical campus would look like.
Yeah.
Insert beige and fluorescent lighting in every
Uh-huh.
direction. And I just really appreciate it. And I think that's play over practicality, right? Like, to me, the although the book is called Today Was Fun, like, I think your sort of overall takeaway is like work must be fun. Like, not work should be fun. If you are a leader and you're listening to this podcast, how are you making work fun for everyone around you? And that starts by honoring the fear you might have because you've got shit to do. Like, I have a few words that I on my no list. Like, deadlines is one of them. We couldn't come up with a better word than deadlines. Right? Just come on,
Dead.
guys. Right? I mean, it's like right there. Right? Tolerate is another one. I think tolerate is on my list of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, you shouldn't tolerate that behavior. Like, I tolerate that human. Okay,
Yeah.
we're going in the wrong direction here. But why my head was nodding so much from the book was we're kind of on similar missions. I agree with you. It's not about another book about culture. What I liked about it was at any moment of the day, I could pick up and turn to a page and take a snippet from the book. I thought it was very thoughtful. Maybe you only had me for a minute,
Thanks.
or I could actually do it as a beach read, which is what I did it as.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But if it was a minute read, I could still pick up something and have an idea, or there's like something sticky that would remind me. Oh, now some of it is also, like you said, it's above my pay grade for a lot of people, right? Like I really enjoyed and I didn't know that Henry Ford took us from 6-day work week to 5-day work week, and couldn't help to think to myself, on the 7th day we rest, right? But like, like
Uh-huh.
what's the solution there, or is it already happening? Is it a 4-day, 3-day? And this is, here's where I want to kind of like pivot off the book for a second and be like,
Sure.
I'm really curious, like, cause I feel like this hybrid workforce, remote work arena we're in, I do worry about. I worry about who's losing.
Mm,
This isn't about fun now. This is about like advancement. So I know that my brain I might need to like reverse engineer to get back to fun. But
mm,
like, I worry about innovation. I worry
mm-hmm.
about I worry about I felt like the old you learn what to do by watching what not to do means you were there and present to watch what not to do. And I can tell you exactly who my worst boss ever was. I'm never going to acknowledge that, right? But I remember
Yeah.
being like, you're on the what not to do list. And as a dad of a 12-year-old who if I had a time machine in a decade from now, like, does this next generation of leader, are they getting that list? Are they learning what not to do
Mm,
because they're not in the office? So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on this space.
yeah. So my general approach to where do we work is that physical distance does not imply emotional distance and does not imply a distance from learning or growth. Not in all cases, but I do know that it's not strictly true that virtual kills all of that. Because I know some of my closest, highest performing teams were all virtual during the pandemic. So I know that there's a counterpoint there that it's possible. That's not to say that it's universally true that working remotely doesn't impact innovation, learning, or frankly, enjoyment of your work. I also think the return to office, remote hybrid work, it's also tricky because it's all wrapped up in power. It's like, who's deciding where I am? Is my boss deciding? Am I deciding? Is the company deciding? Who knows best? And so that like riles up a whole bunch of emotions because frankly, like like Bree the human, my personal opinion is I love being in an office because I love hanging out with coworkers. I love being like, hey, cool shoes, those are new. And they're like, yeah, I like the whole bearing witness to each other's lives kind of thing. I find it fun. But also, I have a little bit of an independent streak. I also don't want someone to make me be in the office. I just want to be in the office. So, yeah, there's all sorts of questions around like, how do you standardize? What's the equity? Like, how do you make this equitable as a solution? But I do think it's totally possible. And we're like proving it out company by company, day by day, to have a hybrid workforce that's super innovative and joyful and flexible. And also, I've seen some research that says the Gen Z, like younger generations, actually really enjoy being in the office, which actually instinctively makes sense. Like if they're sort of in their 20s and dating mode, don't have kids to go home to, like, yeah, I would want to be in an office too and be like, let's go out after work or hang out late or something like that. So, yeah, so I don't think we're screwed, if that was the question. But it's definitely a different kind of workplace than, say the show The Office, where you're there 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, that sort of style.
Well, the power play comment makes sense, right? Because we're gonna want to be like, you're gonna try to make me do what? I'm going, no matter what you say, I want to.
Right.
I'm gonna try to take the other side of that. And it's funny. I think you mentioned in the book maybe go to a 4-day, 3-day, 3 days off. I don't right, but
oh yeah, like a 4-3 split instead of a 5-2 split. Mm-hmm.
I would rather personally go to Congress and be like, why aren't we like? Can't we just do an 8-day week? Right. And like, let's just, how about we go 5 days, 3 days, and like, okay, we already call it fun day. So go Saturday, fun day, Sunday, 5 on, 3 off. Like, can we do that? Like, all right. Anyway, who knows if that's even possible? Like, let's go to that. Are you in?
Yeah, because okay, here's what I love about that. I get totally jazzed and lit up whenever we just rethink the systems we live in, because they're made up. That's what Bob is here to tell us about. Like we made this shit up.
Totally.
So we can do it however we want. And I have another thought experiment. Like businesses are like, there's two kinds of sports in terms of structure. There's sports where you get the highest score by the end of the time, like football, right, or basketball. And then there's sports you try and do the best you can to achieve some goal. So that's like track, right? You're trying to get to the end as fast as you can. We always play business as a football kind of sport, right? We run the whole year and make as much money as we can, but we don't have to. We could run it like track. What's the revenue that we need to pull in order to meet our expenses and have some profit? If we get there by October, I don't know, should we all just call it? Not to say that this is practical, there's so many logistics, but I just love when we can rethink the norms and structures that we take for granted, like, oh, it has to be this way. So
totally.
I am in for your 5-3
All right, let's go.
workday.
Let's go. You heard it, folks, here on the Courageous Podcast. We're going to Congress. It's funny, over the holiday, over my vacation, I was at the beach all week. I just had this I forget who brought it up, but it was a legal team. It was a legal law firm where the partners said, we want to make this much money in a year. And if we hit it by August, we're shutting it down. We're shutting it down.
Yeah.
And they're holding each other accountable to that number.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So they picked a number. That's the number. And you're not in this overwork and underlive arena. Now, one last thing I want to touch on, because if Bob the Alien does look at that remote work, the hybrid work arena, my fear still is not only is Google Calendar in control, and Bob the Alien might be like AI Bob the Alien, which is like able to also have a multiplier on what they do in a short period of time. But Bob the Alien would also look at our calendar and go, there's like, how can you be productive when your calendar is like 30-minute block, 30-minute block, 30-minute block, 30-minute block, 30-minute block. And it is the new system that needs to be designed. But I think in corporate America, I'm seeing a lot of, you're just getting to the good part. Like the defrost has finally happened, and maybe you started the marinating, but like the cooking with fire comes at the 28th minute, and you're like, sorry, I got to go to the next square.
Yeah.
I got to go to the next box. Right. You're like, I don't know, well, put another box on the calendar. We'll do another 30 minutes. When my next opening is in 3 days. So like, I do worry about I used to dread, do you have a minute,
Yeah.
when someone would come to my office, like, do you have a minute? Be like, oh shit. Like I'm gonna have to lose 70 minutes. But like in that collision is where the good stuff happened. So how do you like what is your thought on this? Like how do we continue in honor of like if work is not fun, we're probably not producing our best work.
For
Not that
sure.
it's all about
Hmm.
that, but it kind of
Yeah.
is. Oh,
Yeah. I mean, it's super important. Yeah. So Microsoft came out with their Infinite Workday report recently. It says all sorts of crazy data in there, including employees are interrupted every 2 minutes on average by a meeting, email, or message. What the hell? Like, how are you going to get anything done? Right. But also, you hear that data, and I'm like, that tracks. That checks out. Okay. I mean, when I was like deep in consulting life, for sure. So it is problematic. And I think to me, this is a failure of organizations and leadership. Like the word organization, the whole point of an organization is to organize. So if you are not organizing people's time and what they need to do their work and the resources and the coordination, then you're failing at being an organization. And this comes about because any one person can slap a calendar on or slap a meeting on anyone else's calendar, right? And so, Cal Newport writes about this. He calls it the hyperactive hive mind, but just this notion that we're just like buzzing with meetings. So we need to be intentional about pushing it back against that. So my favorite tool is I call it the do nothing day, which is I would always do it leading a consulting project, maybe like a week or two in where we sort of had gotten on board with the client. We would schedule a day as a team where we would produce nothing. Meaning this wasn't PTO and this wasn't like we were going to a museum or whatever. This was we committed to not we were not on the hook for any emails, deliverables, PowerPoints, or whatever. But it was a working day. And so what we would do is we'd go to the park or some other out of office place and just think for the day. Like we forget if you're a knowledge worker, thinking is work. And so for the day, I sort of like structured it a little bit with like, okay, let's think about this part of what we have to do for the client. And we just like chat about it with no end in sight. We'd go down rabbit holes. If a conversation wasn't interesting, we stopped having it. If we got excited about something, once in a while, we'd jot that down. Because our brains, like sometimes I think of brains as like if you imagine a water pipe, you can't have water flowing both ways in a pipe. So if your brain has constant input, like water is coming through those pipes, you're not pushing water out of your brain. You're not being generative or creative. You're just like whack-a-moling your life at this point. Like return that email, get to this meeting. And that's not brilliant work. Like no business rose and succeeded because of their email response time. And oddly, that it seems to be our metric of success.
I love the do nothing day, and because it's really like think everything, do nothing. It's like all think time, right? Like
yes.
And the water pipe makes sense. It's almost we think we're better at multitasking than we are, and there's a whole
Right.
study and all of that. It's funny. I've definitely a love of words forces you to do what we're both doing a little bit about like how could like I used to say my last agency was not an organization because I was just not that organized. But I would also say, well, we were an organism.
That's nice.
We were an organism, and like, what can the organism? What is it like? What are the rules of the organism? What can it tolerate as it's flowing and growing and changing? Right. Your job is like, it's almost like, can this patient be operated on or not? And I wonder again, when you bring a do nothing day, let me backtrack. I'm curious what your motives are with all of this. Like, what does success look like? Right. Like, we talked about Milton. We talked a little bit about the time machine. I mean, if you think if, Milton were still here, he'd probably be smiling that he will live on forever in your book.
I hope so.
Right. That wasn't his intent. Right. He just wanted to
yeah.
more play and less practicality, or play and practicality, probably. So let's say we got in our time machine and we went 40 years in the future, and you can finally go, I know, absurdity, right? And because you have a whole life at home and you're on this mission, what do you think success looks like? What's the mission that you're on?
Yeah. So for the world or for me or for both?
This is a choose your own adventure of fun for you.
Ooh. All right. Well, I'll start with the world. What I would hope, my dream of work is that, like, it's actually pretty simple. At night, you enjoy time with family, friends, or yourself, and you kind of look forward to going to work the next day. At work, you enjoy time with your colleagues and clients and customers and making things, and you look forward to going home at night. And then at the end of each day, most days, not every day, most days, you curl up in bed and you think, today was fun. Like, that's kind of the metric of success. For, like, to me, that's, if I can say that most days of my life, I think, "Ugh, I've won. That's plenty." So that's what I hope for people, that we stop wishing away our days, that we stop the dread that you opened with. So that's my hope for the world. My hope for the book, it's always hard. It's like, oh, do you want a bestseller list? Or blah, blah. Like, honestly, what the coolest thing I could imagine happening from the book is that people are passing it around in offices. That would, I mean, and maybe buying copies, but, aside from the sales number, that would be so cool. I would love nothing more than one person to hand this book to a colleague and say, you have to read this. We have to start working this way. Would blow my mind. That is my grandest hope. And also how I designed the book too. And it's like, it's all, as you mentioned, sort of snackable stories. There's something good on every page. It's not one of these books where you could have done a TED Talk and been done with it, because I wanted it to be rich enough that you could flip through and keep it near you. So that would be amazing. That's my hope for the book.
Yeah, I don't know if I picked up. Maybe because I was on vacation brain. It wasn't until I got to the end that I realized work should be fun. This is. Can I give away the ending? Can I give or no?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, okay. Work should be fun. It should feel human. We should do it with friends and make brilliant things with sense of purpose as one joyful part of a big, beautiful life. 1 through 7. I don't know if I missed it, but I'm like, oh, okay, here. What a surprise. A design expert brought some design play into the book. I did walk away wondering, I wonder, like, if I were you, and this is like, it's like the two consultants walk into a bar a little bit, so I gotta be careful on this bit.
Tell me, Ryan. Yeah.
Are you ready? It's like, we'll cut this part out of the podcast. Cut it right out of the podcast. Right? I was like, oh my gosh, if I'm anyone that's listening that runs a VC should hire you immediately, because this stuff is really hard to unwind for companies, but is really like the right blueprint for any entrepreneur that wants to like start their company off on the right foot. Like, as I read it, I was like, the time machine thing is real. Like, yeah, we talk about being in the business all the time. And you heard that, right? Like, what do we have to rethink, or what do we need to who do we need to re-energize or re-galvanize? But when you get this stuff that, like, right out of the gate, and you're designing the environment for the organism to like thrive, it's almost like the goldfish can only grow as big as the environment. And so you wonder, right? If I hire you out of a gate, any entrepreneur that they should hire you immediately. Like, what are the rules, or the rules of power? Games have rules. What are the rules on how we want to play and show up? I've thought, like, you'd be the perfect on retainer human for VCs and entrepreneurs. And it's not that you couldn't take on the unwind work, right?
Right. Done a bunch of that. Yeah.
Been there, right? But like that was where my brain really went. And then, curious enough, and this came from this conversation, I almost wondered, like, if you called it Today Was Fun in America. I know we don't want to go political, because I wonder, like, Today Was Fun in Spain. Like, are other countries getting it right where we're just blowing it here? Like, what countries are getting it right? Is anyone getting it right? Or is this a US problem? And did you look at that or consider, like, oh, by the way, that'd be a fun budget to have to go travel around and like,
Yes.
curious on your thoughts there.
Sure thing. Well, on your first point, thank you. I do love an early stage startup where you're like cooking from scratch. So
Yeah.
good. Yeah, on the international thing, other countries are doing it better than us here in the US for sure. So, case in point, maybe this was 10 years ago or so. I had done dozens of hundreds, I don't know, workshops in the US. We had a client in Portugal, super excited. We flew over, we're going to do a workshop there, planned it the exact same way as we would for a US workshop. We get to lunchtime, we've allotted a 30-minute break, assuming catering's going to be set up. They eat and we get back to it. And the CEO was like, well, now we sit down for lunch. And I was like, okay. So we're going from this conference room to the lovely restaurant. They sit down for at least a 90-minute lunch with wine, I was like, what the hell is it? Like, why aren't we doing? So first I was like, oh my God, what are we?
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. I was like, Portugal knows what's up. I don't even care that they blew up my workshop timeline. Like, to hell with it. This is amazing. Or like Sweden, I have a friend who lives there now, and she's always telling me people take 3, 4, 5 weeks off in the summer. No big deal. Yes, absolutely. Other countries are doing it better, which also means it's fine. Like it's okay. You can live that way. People live and work and are happy and live full lives in Portugal and Sweden, and it's all good.
There's certain emails that I've received when, like, we'll call them summer siestas in Europe, where it's pretty much like the email that I get is like, this email will be deleted. The email you sent me is going to be deleted. And if you want to reach me, I'll be back on this date and you can send it to me again. It's like, could you imagine? Bravo. Like, that's
Yeah.
fun.
That is I just love the audacity of it. Like, it's not even like I'll get back to you because then you're coming back from vacation. Like, I don't even want to look at my inbox. It's going to drown me. No, this is straight up like, try again, please. Or don't. I don't know.
But that's your point, I think, on like what designs to new systems need to be created, right? From our lens, it's like audacity, but like you're kind of right. Like, there are moments on this last vacation where, I mean, yeah, I always move I don't want to look at the little circle on my phone, on my iPhone. So I move my email to the last page on my phone. So I'm not having that
Mhm.
2-minute interruption, like I think you called it. But you kind of need a vacation the minute you come back from vacation just to get through email. So there is something to that. That would be a really cool short circuit exercise. Like, what were your 10 look, if like you almost bring Bob back, not Bob the alien. Like, Bob thinks, here's Bob's commandments on work, on like how to get out of this and change it up. Like, be very interesting to like, is there one other that pops for you that's like, this is novel, it'll never happen, but it should?
Yeah. I mean, frankly, business stress I find ridiculous. I did a workshop this week for people specifically in government and like nonprofit sector. And so I was like doing my spiel about like deprofessionalizing work, and functional professionalism is doing great work that achieves impact. Performative professionalism is like, I'm going to put my blazer on and be all fancy about it. And look, I have so much empathy for all of those people but it was also clearly it didn't feel safe to do anything beyond like maybe try a fun sock, which I know you are familiar with, right? Like, even that was a little bit radical and uncomfortable. And it's not because these people were not brave. It's because the system is so rigid, and there's such a culture of, if you don't look this way, then you're not seen as professional. And a zipper in your pants never made anybody smarter, not once. Like, I am here right now with wet hair because I was like, my brain works just fine when my hair is wet. And you know what? I came back from the coffee shop and then I showered and then I got on. I'm just as smart. And yeah, so Bob is very confused why ties even exist. All things like that. You should just dress for joy and comfort and function, I suppose. That's it.
Today was fun. Where you want to send them?
Yeah, come visit me at my internet home, breegroff.com, BreeGroff.com. From there, you can find links to all the bookshop, Amazon, or find it at your local bookstore. It'll be wherever books are sold. You can sign up for my Substack. Come visit me on LinkedIn or Instagram. Would love to connect.
Can you believe it's here, all your hard work, and now it's like a real thing?
It took me longer to make this book than it did to make a human child. I grew my daughter in like 9 months. This book took me 2 years. So it's a weird feeling.
And, often, and again, I'll never know what that's like to give birth, but I've definitely, feel that the book writing process is giving birth. And I've also found myself in the past saying, just like people give birth, I'm never doing that again. That was so painful. And then like a couple months go by, you're like, well, you kind of forget how painful it was. And so is there another book? Do you think this is it? Or you think you'll write another one, or too soon?
Maybe. I mean, to be honest, I loved the process. I mean, I cried periodically, and it was like I did not like the copy editing was like, oh, so like catch the type. But overall, I loved it. I honestly truly felt like I was playing. I like making art. It felt like self-expression. So I'd love to do it again. We'll see how this one goes and where it takes me.
I think it's a great read, great snippets, folks. Today was fun. Check out Bree Groff, breegroff.com. That's BreeGroff.com. I'm so glad we could do this, and thank you for bringing this to the world. And I'm very excited to see what the next decade of your life looks like and where this thing takes you.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate you having me on. It was a lot of fun.
All right, we'll do this again when the next book comes out. We'll just schedule it now, and we'll let Bob know it's going on the calendar, since that's what runs it about 8 years from now. Sound good?
Amazing. Yeah,
okay,
for sure.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Bree.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Courageous Podcast. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts so more people can find us. See you again next week.